Go. Hello, I'm Derek Arden, and welcome to another version of Monday Night Live. We're rebooting the session after the summer holidays, and I've got 16 experts on who have all got a tip to share. Well, perhaps they haven't all got a tip to share, but let's look at some of the real good, fantastic tips. And my first tip is the power of 17. I'm always talking about the power of 17. This week, 3 people asked me, how do you deal with meetings, Derek? I go to boring meetings that go on for an hour. There's no structured agenda, and often there's no outcome to the meeting. Well, why not suggest a 17-minute meeting, perhaps a stand-up meeting if you're in the office, focused with an agenda for 17 minutes. I also set my watch for 17 minutes when I'm working from home, and off it goes, and I try and complete whatever task I'm doing in those 17 minutes. It's a discipline, creates a bit of pressure, creates a bit of work towards your short-term goals of 17 minutes. So that's my first tip. And over to my pal Godfrey Lancashire down in Dorset for his first tip. Godfrey, are you there?
I certainly am, Derek, and hello everybody, and I hope you've had a wonderful summer holidays. And of course, so typical now with the weather changing in the UK, everybody's going back to school tomorrow, and here we are, we've got the best week of sunshine going. So it's shorts on the south coast and off to the beach, but I hope you're all well and have had a lovely summer. I was mulling this over with Derek, but then quietly and thinking it is so easy amongst all our business tasks, our business relationships, goal setting for a new year, a new term, that we sometimes forget the all too important human qualities that we need to just bear in mind. And so this is not exactly a business tip, but it might help us all just to remember that one of the best things we can do is to be kind. And kindness is the quality of being friendly, generous, and considerate to others. And I came across a lovely quote the other day from Archbishop Desmond Tutu, who said, when we were talking about kindness, just do your little bit of kindness now wherever you are, and all those little bits of kindness will add up to overwhelm the world. So there it is. I leave it with you. A thought for the day, really, to be kind. And of course, remember too to be kind to yourself. We sometimes forget that, but if we look after ourselves with some kindness, it will come a little more easily to be kind to others. It'll make you feel good. So that's it, as simple as it is. Let's remember to be kind.
Fantastic, Godfrey. Thank you so much. And let's go now to Shelley, and after Shelley, we'll go to Will Kintish.
Well, nicely teed up for me there. I had to go to, and I said had to go. I'm thinking of Paul there. I had to go to Newcastle a couple of weeks ago, and you talked about Edinburgh. It was an Edinburgh train that I got on. I sort of had a Pavlovian response and had to rush to the WC when I was on the train, just in case I was going all the way to Edinburgh. But I was working with a really interesting experience for 2 days with a group of millennials and Generation Z, I think. So we're basically talking about people sort of up to the age of 30-ish. And what came out is they were all aspiring business people or doing other work. And they all of them unanimously almost said what they really get turned off by is all the isms. You know, they're not interested in, really don't care about what somebody's color is, what their sexuality is, what their gender is, anything really. And they're actually interested, and this is my real point. I think we have to start getting braver. They don't want to just know why we do what we do. They want to know a bit more about who we are. Now, it doesn't mean you have to you know, tell them every kind of negative thing that happened to you when you were 6 years old and 7 years old. But who are you and why do you do what you do? You know, if you're running a B Corps, you might say, well, it's obvious, but what made you want to run a B Corps? What really inspired you to do what you do? And unless we take that mask off, you've got far less chance of dealing with them or winning business from them. Now, you may say, well, I'm not interested in that age group, but that age group is very rapidly turning into middle age. And I think it's something we have to pay attention to.
Mm.
So that's my tip. Take the mask off and share a bit more about who you are, as well as why you do what you do.
And what were the isms? You mentioned isms at the first.
Well, all of them really. They're really not interested. They don't care about someone's nationality, their race, the color of their skin, their religion, sexuality. Don't really care. They want to know what you do and why you do it, and if you're doing something positive.
Fantastic.
What difference are you trying to make? It was really refreshing, actually.
Yeah. No, fantastic tip. I was at Buckingham University on Thursday with Graham, and he willed me into some 20-year-old students, and they had some great questions and put me under quite a bit of pressure, which was great fun. And I caught their energy. It's great mixing with and sharing with younger people. Thanks for that. Now to Will Kintish, and after Will Kintish, let's go to Mark Lee.
Before I give my tip, I just want to say something to Godfrey and everyone else about kindness. My son, who has 2 children aged about 8-ish and 6-ish, he says to them on a regular basis, I want you to do 2 things through life. Be kind and do your best. And you know what? At the end of last term, they both won kindness awards at school. So it's very rare that children listen to their parents, but it appears that on this occasion they did. And as a grandfather, I was delighted. When I look at my group here today, the knowledge, the experience and expertise you all have, or we all have, let me include myself, what can I tell you that's new? Well, I probably can't tell you anything, but maybe you'll think about sharing the next couple of moments with your children and grandchildren. And again, picking up Godfrey's theme about being kind when it comes to relationship building, one of the greatest things we can give is our genuine interest in our time. And it's all about asking questions. Now, I don't know about you, but it's very, very rare that I go and meet people for the first time or in a group and they don't ask me anything. So will you teach your children, grandchildren, and friends of children and grandchildren that to be liked, it's all about being interested more than being so-called interesting? There are 4 areas of questioning if we go networking. One is the icebreaker question. Never ask, what do you do? Always find something in common. Ask about their business. Ask about their hobbies. Ask about what they do when they're not working. And finally, if you ever smell an opportunity where it's a mutual benefit, always ask permission to follow up. So questioning, but it can be fraught with danger, because if you're not looking at the person, it might end up as an interrogation, because if they don't ask you anything, then it becomes very difficult. How do we deal with it? Well, that's for another day. Derek, back to you.
Will, thanks. Always fantastic wisdom from you. And I may have heard you say that many times, probably 20 or 30 times on the 20 years we've known each other. But I always want to be reminded. It's odd, isn't it? I always want to be reminded, and I know that I don't do it all the time. I was thinking of you last week when I was talking to somebody who had no interest in me, but I was asking them lots of questions about them, and suddenly I had an aha Will Kintish moment. I've been asking questions for 20 minutes and I am now bored with you. but we talk about that, don't we? And we talk
Did
about
you
that.
dump them, Derek? Did you get rid of them?
Well, I was sitting next to them at
Oh.
lunch, Will. That
Oh.
was the problem.
It's like being in prison and chained up, isn't it?
Absolutely, absolutely. And I thought, how do I get out? I was the first to leave. I was the first to leave, but there we are. Over to Mark Lee. I haven't briefed you on this, Mark, but I know you're a man of many talents, so I'm sure you've got a tip for us. And after Mark Lee, I think we should go to Ava in Albuquerque. Mark.
Thanks, Derek, and hello, everybody. I was going to say good evening, but if Ava's in Albuquerque, I've no idea what time it is there. It's either the morning or the middle of the night. So hello, anyway. Normally, when I'm sharing advice, ideas and tips, I'm talking to audience either of accountants or speakers and people of a certain age. And most of us, not everybody here, but most of us are of an age a little bit older than the people that typically want to listen to me. So I thought what I would do is share with you the 5 M's of marketing. I'm not a marketing expert. I used to be an accountant. I'm all right now. John and Will know me from those days, Derek, Shelley as well. But the 5 M's of marketing essentially are answering the question, which social media platforms should I be on? And often I always point out that's the wrong question. And I appreciate most of us of a certain age here are probably not that interested in being on lots of platforms. And indeed, there's little point in being across all of the platforms. So the 5 M's, which apply when it comes to thinking about social media or any form of attitudes and approaches to marketing. The first M is, what's your motive? What is it you're trying to achieve? What's your objective? The second M is, who is your market? Who are you trying to reach? The third M is, what's the message you want to get to your market that will help you achieve your motive, your objective? And then, and only then, do we consider the fourth M, which is which media is best placed to help us get our message to our market in order to achieve our motive. So if I pause there just for a second before I get to the 5th M, so if you are looking to deal with established accountants, as I am, who are more successful but are frustrated, lonely, isolated, overwhelmed even, I'm not going to find them across a whole raft of social media platforms. The younger ones maybe, but they're less interested in listening to me and engaging me to mentor and support them. So I don't try to be active across a whole raft of social media. The one that's most valuable to me and best able to help me reach my audience, get my message to my market to achieve my motive, is LinkedIn. And I always stress that that isn't just another social media platform. It's much better thought of as an online business networking platform, not as the journalist in the Sunday Times said yesterday, it's all about recruitment and getting jobs. If that was the case, there wouldn't be 30 million profiles on there from the UK alone, because that's vastly more than the people looking for jobs or looking to recruit people. The fourth and final M is, what methods will you use with that media to get your message to your market to achieve your motive? And by that, I mean, are you going to be advertising? Are you going to be posting content? Are you going to be reaching out to people? And again, that's particularly relevant when it comes to looking at activity on LinkedIn. So the 5 M's, if you're trying to consider how are you best going to get your message out there to anybody in any form of marketing or social media activity, think of the 5 M's and take them in that order. Don't start by thinking about what am I going to do with this particular platform. So that's the 5 M's from me, Mark Lee. Thanks. Back to you, Derek.
Great, Mark. Thanks very much. You said you're not a marketing expert. That sounded pretty expert to me, but thank you so much. Now we go across 5,000 miles to Albuquerque to Ava. Are you there, Ava? And after Ava, we'll go to Carl in California.
Well, quickly, Mark, it is 10:20 where I'm at in the morning, just so you know. Well, my tip, I live every day in the world where everything is counted in numbers and money. Your worth, your sense of value, and how we perceive how happy you can be comes down to numbers. How much money did you move around in any given day? And I have noticed that it doesn't make people happy. So here's my tip for you. The most important thing in any given day is answering this question. Did I grow today? It doesn't matter if your business was successful. Did you grow? Did you fail in your business? Are you bankrupt and you have no home? The only question that matters is, did I grow? And it's not just any type of growth. I'm going to be very specific here. It's that growth from the place that Shelley was talking about. Who are you and why are you here? Do you have that crystal clear in your head? And if you don't, then there's a good chance you're trying to grow in the wrong direction, in a direction someone else is telling you to grow. But you have to grow from a place that is important to you. What is your intuition? What does your gut tell you? Where do you need to grow? And it's a challenge. It's a challenge for most of us, because the only way to have a different outcome is that we have to become somebody different, which means we have to grow. And we have so much resistance to growth because it changes us and it makes us vulnerable. Kind of think of snakes. The most vulnerable snakes is when they shed their skin. The scales haven't hardened yet. They have to stay in one place, and it happens to humans as well. And that's where the resistance is coming from. So maybe that 17 minutes that you can take in your day, what Derek was talking about, how can you grow in any given day? Spend that time on yourself and for yourself.
That was great, Ava. Thank you for that. There's a lot of food for thought coming out of this, isn't there? There's some deep thinking required. I think I'm going to need to take 17 minutes out to do that as soon as we've finished. Thanks, Ava. And to California now, to Pasadena, I think it is, isn't it, Carl, where you are?
That is correct. Pasadena, California. What I'm going to talk about is maybe one of the first lessons, big lessons that I learned as a young man. And it may be one of the most important ones that I've ever learned. I was born short, cross-eyed, and with a profound stutter. Now, an operation fixed the eyes, and working on stage helped with the stutter. The short thing, well, 2 out of 3 isn't that bad. So what I learned is when I was growing up and in school, and you know how cruel children are, the one handicap, let's call it a handicap, that is still to this day, it's the only one left really that it's okay to ridicule people for. It's perfectly all right. And that's the stuttering. We even see it with President Biden. He has overcome a very profound stutter, but every once in a while he trips over his words, and that's what happens. And of course, immediately everybody jumps on him and says, "Oh, he's senile. Oh, he's a moron." No, he has a speech impediment that he's done a lot of work on. Well, with me in school, of course, I constantly had people getting up into my face and going, duh, duh, retard. Yeah, that's the word we used, retard, retard. And they would repeat my stutter back to me just so that I could really enjoy the moment. And at first it hurt deeply. But after a while, I realized there was nothing I could do about it. So I began to ignore that. And that was the big change. As soon as I began ignoring it and just kept doing what I was doing and what I wanted to do, I began excelling. And I began to become the leader of those people who had called me retard. And it happened in high school. I became student body president. The retard made it to the top in high school politics, and then college, and then, of course, getting accepted to the Royal Academy of Dramatic Art as an actor. And that's when it hit me. I love to be underestimated. I love it because it's amazing how far you will get when people aren't paying attention to you. You get to the head of the line. And so now I look back on it and I think, wow, what a gift my stutter was, because it allowed me to be ignored, to be put down and underestimated. And that always resulted in me coming out on top. Back to you, Derek.
That's a fantastic tip. I like to play that game as well when I'm negotiating. You know, the dumb is smart technique. I don't understand, Lieutenant Columbo, whatever you want to call it. You want to keep your cards to your chest and play that game. And also, Carl, was there a defining moment that you can remember when you made the decision that you wouldn't be a victim, you would take advantage of this situation that you found yourself in?
Not really. It was a slow buildup of emotional callous. You could put it that way, that finally I was able to just compartmentalize and just ignore that.
Okay, fantastic for sharing that. Can we go to you now, Martin? I'm sorry I didn't ask you to unmute yourself or give you any notice, but that's pretty normal when we work together, isn't it? So
the day you give me notice, Derek, is the day I'll pack it in. Okay, well, first of all, let me say I was a bit surprised when Derek asked me to speak as a, quote, expert, because I've never considered myself an expert or even claimed to be one. But on reflection, there was an occasion in the past when I did claim to be an expert, and I want to confess my sins now. I was on a management development course some years ago in the bank, and we were all asked as part of this 2 or 3 weeks to make a presentation. Being a corporate manager, you're always being required to make presentations to either existing customers or new ones. So I decided I'd do this presentation. I think we were given 10 or 15 minutes for the presentation. And it coincided with the Lord Mayor of my hometown, Leicester, declaring Leicester a nuclear-free zone, which I found absolutely fascinating. You know, he'd got some sort of power to divert the H-bomb as it was heading towards us and send it to Nottingham or somewhere close by. So this gave me an idea for my presentation. So I told this story that in the light of this information about Leicester being a nuclear-free zone, that I, in fact, was the regional superintendent of the Civil Defence Force. Part-time job because I work full-time in the bank. And if we had the 4-minute warning, somewhere hidden in the depths of Leicester, there was a bunker where the top dog in the Civil Defence Force and a few of his colleagues, would be allowed to go and protect themselves from this nuclear warfare. So I told this story and went into a lot of detail about what it involved and what training I'd had, and it was, of course, a complete fabrication. But I told it with extreme confidence, looked to my audience straight in the face, and they were absolutely aghast that I managed to pull in this responsibility alongside all the other responsibilities in my job. It just so happened there was a chap in the class whom I'd known for years. He was from a different part of the country. He was up from Southampton. I'd known him for years because we'd been involved in training forever. And he came up to me afterwards and he said, "Martin," he said, "I never realised you were in the Civil Defence Force. You kept that quiet." I said, "I'm not." So my message is, you can persuade most people of most things as long as you do it as long as you're well prepared and you do it with confidence.
Thanks, Martin. Martin, of course, with his Irish ancestors, is one of the greatest storytellers there ever is. And I don't usually believe anything he says, actually, but there we go. Great story. And I've written that down. You're the managing director of the Civil Defence Force in Leicester. You'll be getting emails from
No, Derek, can you get it right? I'm the regional superintendent. Get the title right.
Okay, regional superintendent. I apologise for demoting you there. Tim Durkin, do you feel up to give us one of your fantastic tips from 7 Habits or something similar?
Well, yeah, it's not from 7 Habits. It's just as I sit here in complete wonderment on how I got involved with such a group of amazing people from whom I learn all the time. Last week, throughout my life, I've had what I call perspective snaps, where I am reminded of how important it is to keep things in perspective. And for hours a week ago, they stopped my heart, and I was kept alive by a blood pumping machine. And they deflated my lungs, and I was kept alive by a breathing machine. And then the doctors and the nurses and the team went together and performed a bypass, which is very, very successful. And it reminds me of how lucky we are to be living in a time when we have access to this kind of treatment. And I know our good friend, Will Kintish, from whom I've learned so much over the years, reminded me of the treatment that he got with his heart attack a year or so ago. The other thing I want to mention is Shelley's point about taking the mask off. At the age of 50, that is precisely the words that I use. And I even got a sculpture made of a person taking a mask off. And at the age of 50, when I decided I was playing, in golfing terms, the back 9 of my life, I just decided to live an authentic life. And that has made all of the difference. In preparation for my surgery, knowing that I'd have an extended period of time of healing, I actually began the healing process 6 weeks before my surgery date. I began through a lot of prayer, a lot of meditation, a lot of preparation, a lot of visualization. And I think that's why I've made somewhat, I wouldn't say remarkable progress, but very fine progress in my healing. And I think we should understand that healing can take place before problems. And we can do that by getting in touch with certain areas. And just yesterday, coincidentally, I discovered a person that lives in England that is one of the most interesting human beings I've ever recorded. He lives in a town called Bakewell. I don't know where Bakewell is. His name is John Butler. I think he's in his 80s. He spent his life as an organic farmer and helper around the world. And his interaction with what he determines to be God, which is a very personal decision for all of us, if we believe in God at all, is absolutely remarkable. Look up John Butler, Spiritual Fulfillment, I think is the name. And finally, I couldn't agree more with the idea of kindness, which Godfrey started with. And my favorite phrase now, which I repeat every day, is accept what is, let go of what was, have faith in what will be, and in a world where we can be anything, let's be kind.
Fantastic, Tim, and congratulations on your successful operation. Great to see you. I didn't know you'd reach 50, so that's great news to know that you're over over 50. But you shouldn't give these secrets away. Mark Lee told me never to put your age on LinkedIn because you may get a bit of ageism creeping in.
I understand that, but I don't care.
Yeah, okay.
I don't care. And by the way, Derek, on the table behind you, would that possibly be a green banana?
That is a green banana, Tim. Yeah, I had to buy it today because I thought I'll be around tomorrow. That's
I don't
story.
buy
We'll have to
green
use that
bananas.
story in the autumn as well when we get you on full time. I made a note of that. Now we're going to go down to Southampton to John Lisby, who tells me he has a light-hearted tip for us. John, you're muted. You're not now.
It's a very quick tip. If you're about to start with a Derek Arden show, don't arrive with a full packet of licorice all sorts, because they disappear very quickly whilst listening. My second quick tip was, Martin, I loved your accounting be something that you're not. I mean, I use the word fake it until you make it. I mean, I faked it all my life, and eventually you believe, and other people believe, that what you're saying is right, and you can live the life having faked it. Perhaps a very quick, serious one, because I got irritated with my accountants today, who just sent me a direct debit notification that my direct debit from my Zero accounting system was going to go up again, and it's gone up 24% in a year. And at no time have I had any contact from the accountants explaining why there's this £9 a month increase. Now, I can manage the £9 a month. It's just that I have this perception that the younger accountants in this world just haven't got used to how you build relationships, referring back to Will, really. And they're very happy and satisfied with texting and emailing, and they totally forget the value of actually face-to-face. And Zoom and Team is fine, but I've found now we're through COVID and everything, I go and have lunch, or I find a coffee reason to meet clients, and I always win every time I'm face-to-face. And it's time we all got back to getting our relationships going again face-to-face. My last grumble, can I have grumbles as well as tips?
Well, I'm going to ring the bell because there's been a bit of negativity flying around, but yes,
I get very irritated by the new slang words that appear all the time, especially on English television, like the word we get, musicality, that comes on Strictly relative lots of times, or physicality. Are those real words? These new slang words seem to be coming into the language, and that irritates me. So I would tip, don't use these funny words because they're not real. That's the end of my tips.
There is
if anybody likes, I've just got a passion for licorice all sorts.
Well,
once it's opened, they go. It's I'm sorry about that.
John, don't licorice all sorts send you to the bathroom. This is probably a negative idea as well, but I had a feeling they might be good for that, but perhaps I'm wrong. I was going to go down to an unsuspecting Jill English. Have you got a tip for us, Jill? I'm sure you have. You always have. You're muted at the moment.
Something did occur to me, and that kind of pulls together a couple of things. We started off, Derek, with you saying about meetings and meetings without agendas, and Godfrey saying what was important was being kind, and Will talking about the value in networking of asking questions about other people, and that links with my tip, which is around having a customer focus. As a blasé thing, and people have talked about having a customer focus, but in the context of meetings, I tried to model the behavior that I wanted to see. So I would send out an invitation to a meeting, and I'd say exactly what that was about. And if it wasn't going to be structured around a formal agenda, if it wasn't that kind of meeting, I'd be saying, Derek, okay, can we meet at this time or this time? This is what I want to know. I want to talk about blah, 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 and I want your input on that. I need to do so and so, we need to do so and so. What about, there's nothing there that you would not be expecting. So you can prepare for what you're going to do. And if you say no, it's very easy for me to follow up and say, okay, so can we do this offline, or is there some other way of doing it? Now, a young accountant in my last contract kept inviting me to meetings and not telling me what they were about. Now, I wasn't involved in his project. And after 2 or 3 times, I just said, do you know what? If it's not important enough for you to tell me what the meeting's about, it's not important enough for me to come. So putting yourself in the other person's shoes and thinking about what matters to them, I find very useful.
That is just so important, Jill, isn't it? And it seems to me there's more meetings now. I talk to people who say I've got meetings, back-to-back meetings all day. And you think, how can you get anything done, write your notes up, achieve anything, take action from it, etc. It really is beyond belief. We've had a few people that I haven't invited to give tips to because I never put them on notice, but I'd love to hear from Paul, Nigel, Mary, and Grace and Phil if you had a tip. So just put your hands up if you've got a tip and unmute yourself and let's go for it. Nigel.
My tip really is an extension of what Godfrey said. It doesn't cost the person anything to say, but to the recipient, it can be profound and can make a real difference. And that's a simple word saying thank you.
Wow.
Given that projects are about people, not necessarily process or tools and techniques, it's the human bit. And you can see the motivation is like a balloon being pumped up. And I think we should reflect and just say to people, acknowledge them, just to say thank you. That would be my tip.
I know. Please and thank you. And manners are just so important. Thanks for that, Nigel. Paul Coleman. Paul.
Thanks, Derek. I was actually thinking, how was I going to make a pass on this and say I had no idea really for a tip. But I think, well, put it this way, I was chastised about 40 minutes ago to say that I was negative. And I started to think about that, to be honest, and said to myself, because I didn't honestly feel I was being negative. It was just, all right, I just said it. And then I sort of heard how Will describes, and we've heard him before as well, that, you know, the art of conversation, the art of trying to get some sort of relationship. And I thought, well, what's worse with the guy who you meet and he's always down in the dumps and negative? So for all, Derek, your bell that doesn't even ring does send a message, because really I'm thinking to myself, hey, wait a minute, do you realize that you're coming across with a negative tone? And that's my tip, really. I mean, my eyes have been opened today already on the fact that don't allow yourself to come across with any negativity, but you might not even realizing you're doing. That's the point. You might not even realize.
That is a great point. And it's good to point out gently to people that they're being negative. The guy I took to football yesterday, I hope he's not going to watch this. Every time Arsenal missed a goal defended by a great Manchester United defence, oh no, another miss. I had to tell him in the end to stop being so negative. And if he gave up reading the Daily Mail every week, he might be a bit more positive. By the way, the Daily Mail in the UK, for people watching this overseas, is the most negative paper there is. And if you want a good dose of depression, that's the paper to read. Yeah. And you know, when the other thing I got to chip in is when you help people or do a good deed and help them, it creates endorphins in your own brain, and also the law of reciprocity comes in. So there's so much research in all the good books which tells you to help people. Now, where are we? Anybody else with a tip? Mary.
Right. It was just a quick one to say that if you're ever sort of feeling particularly stressed or harassed about doing a load of things, or before a meeting, just take a few moments to take a few slow, calm breaths to get grounded.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And we tend to forget doing that, don't we? So yeah, no, thanks, Mary. Anybody else before I conclude it? Put your hand
Derek,
up.
can I just enlighten the overseas participants on Bakewell? Bakewell is a lovely market town in Derbyshire, in a nice part of Derbyshire, and it's famous for its tart. Now, contrary to some public understanding, that's a confectionery rather than a woman, and it's a very, very nice confectionery. And Bakewell is a lovely town.
It is indeed, and thanks for bringing the tone of the Monday Night Live down, Martin.
I'm just saving some future embarrassment for somebody, Derek. Right? Somebody going to Bakewell and not knowing and saying, "Where's the tart?" might end up with an answer they didn't want.
I do apologise to anyone watching this show for lowering the tone and the swear words that have been used recently, like they do on Sky Sports, and that's from our nuclear expert correspondents in Leicestershire. Thanks, Martin. I'm going to wind up the show now because we've had a lot of time. Stay on afterwards, but thank you everybody for joining. Thank you for sharing your tips. Please encourage people to go to YouTube and watch this, or to Spotify once we've got it up on Wednesday. Next week we will have another show where I've got an exciting guest speaker. So thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next week. Send me in any tips and techniques that we've missed out, because that really does help. And have a great week. See you next week. Thanks for joining.